FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
And welcome. You're listening to the Financial Survival Network. I, of course, am Kerry Lutz, your host. And, well, interesting things in the market. You've got a rout on Wall Street. Is it the end of the artificial bull market, or is it just a breather? What about commodities, precious metals, the dollar? And what are you going to do about it? Well, someone who knows, someone you've spoken with, you've heard me speak with in the past, is Woody O'Brien, Abolish Fiat Slavery. You also find him, he's got an active Facebook page on there. And by the way, we've got an active Facebook group now called FSN Connect. I encourage every one of you to go connect with me on there. I'll be posting things, writing commentaries and such. Basically made it private. You just have to click the thing on Facebook and I'll let you in. And we're just trying to keep the spammers out. But Woody, we got these spammers on Wall Street that keep saying that prosperity is just around the corner.
Well, you know, as Ricky Ricardo used to say to Lucille Ball, explain it to me, Lucy, because I think we're finally getting to the point where the effect of QE to push interest rates to near zero and to continue to float the stock market is having less and less effect. This area between where we started the year at 1959 and the area, or I should say 2059, right, and the area in the 2120s, that's been a trading range for almost 7 months now. And I think we're just getting to a point where all the bad news in the economy is starting to get people to think, you know, this is the end. This is the end of the bear market. And whether it is, I'm not sure I could say for sure it is the end, but it's certainly we're at the beginning of the end. And we may be at the beginning of the end of a vicious bear market in commodities, where now you have not just oil priced below its cost to produce it, gold, silver, and some grains and some other commodities that are literally below the price that their producers cost to do it. And that is invariably in economics where you start to have production shut down, shortages be created, and that becomes for not to go any further lower, but for the potential for a new bull market to develop. So I still think at this moment, this is the time to be selling blue chip stocks, selling blue chip bonds, and starting to be selectively looking at commodities, not just gold, but you got to be looking at coffee and cocoa, which have disease problems and long-term supply problems. You have to be looking at cotton and cows and soybean and wheat and, you know, you name it. Everything in the commodity complex is at a fire sale price. And when you can sell something that's extremely overpriced and buy extremely underpriced assets, you may not be happy 5 minutes or 5 months from now, but 5 years from now, you're going to be very happy.
That is a great point. And I don't know when this stuff is going to go up. I've got people and other trolls telling me that it's going down to $350 an ounce or $600. Hey, where gold is now, real close to 1080 something. I didn't look at it yet today.
Let's stop for a second and ask how that claim can even be credible. And the answer is terribly simple. When you have the world's 10 largest banks that can sell commodities that don't exist, that they don't own, where they can do this naked shorting and pound markets down with artificial supply selling that doesn't exist, and then they can profit from that. I always say when you explain naked shorting to someone, they kind of look at you and go, how can that be legal but smoking pot can't be? So it's one of those, it's just so crazy. But the real question is because all fundamental and technical analysis of commodity markets doesn't work when you don't have real organic price discovery, and all you have is this short selling manipulation. To me, the real question for bullishness on gold and silver is, when is Jamie Dimon and his fellow banksters going to want to reverse the flow, having shaken lots of people out of their physical positions and filled up warehouses of bars? When are they going to decide to reverse the flow and take silver back over $50 and gold back over 1900? That's the question. It's not a question of markets or charts. It's when does the manipulation end? And it certainly will end.
Yeah. Well, there are those who say that this is a function of being in a deflationary environment because overall debt's growing so much faster than GDP, and this is why we have this problem. And
I want to say to those people, baloney. And I'm going to use an example from yesterday. Yesterday, I went to my doctor's office for a routine visit, and the exact same exam 365 days earlier, the cost difference was 56%. Okay, and the nurse told me, "Oh, this is mostly Affordable Care Act compliance." And I said, "Well, I hope you guys got a raise." And she just laughed. The fact of the matter is, healthcare is a good third of the economy, and if it is going up at double-digit rates north of 20%, it's mathematically impossible for us to be in a deflationary spiral. You could argue you're getting a little bit of deflation from the collapsing price of oil, but not very much of that has flowed through to the pump price yet. It's not flowing through to prices of food and other things that have a heavy energy input in it. So all I know is taxes keep going up, healthcare keeps going up, fuel isn't going down much. Real estate prices have been very healthy in recent months, but none of those things add up to massive deflation.
No, I'm not seeing it. I think there will be a period of massive deflation. After there's a period of massive inflation, you always have that deflationary bust. I mean, let's face it, but well,
let me just tell you, I think this argument about whether we'll have deflation or inflation first, I think this is a fool's errand for a very simple reason. The current financial paradigm that we're in is full of manipulation and fraud. Yeah. And when this Ponzi scheme ends, and nobody can tell you the day or the hour, but we can all tell you this, yes, this will end. The only thing that's going to matter in your life is if you own assets for which will survive the crisis and have value in the next monetary paradigm. And if you own real things, if you own farmland, if you own gold, if you own commodities, they're going to have value in the next paradigm because 7 billion people need to eat 3 times a day. All food commodities will have value no matter what. 7 billion people need to have a monetary standard based on something real like gold. 7 billion people need to have energy to move around and to heat and to cool themselves. That's why I think that food and fuel and bullion need to be the core of what people's portfolios are without regard to what their current performance is, because what you're really playing here is on the edge of a pin. If you're in the stock market, what you really should be playing for is what Pete Schiff calls all the time crash proof. Yeah. This isn't about how you'll do in the next 10 minutes or 10 weeks. It's about whether you'll survive what's coming in the next 10 years.
Yeah, that really is what it comes down to. You don't know if it's in the next 10 years or the next 10 months.
I always say I'm surprised every weekday at 4 p.m. Eastern time that this system has made it through another day. It's like a bridge that's had no maintenance.
You know what it's like?
You wonder where the next tractor trailer is going to collapse it.
You know what it's like? I used to be an attorney once upon a time, and I'd go to court, and all the papers, all the files were paper, and they came in these big envelopes. And, there was like a ballet that took place in the court with the clerks coming in and going out and giving them to the judge. And I always thought it was a miracle that the courts functioned as badly as they do. And did. They function much worse now because there's so many more rules that everybody has to comply with, and there's so many lawsuits because our society is so litigious. But it's the same thing. Like, how does this system still function? It's a freaking miracle that it functions at all, because it should have collapsed a long time ago. And I totally agree with you on that every day that you get through without a collapse is a victory for the status quo.
It's a gift, and I think the level of insanity that is going on. I must say to my wife twice a week, this is the dumbest thing I've ever seen, until something even dumber happens. And in the legal system, I could just have it aside for a second. I just had an incident here myself here at the farm a couple of years ago. We hired some loggers to selectively cut some trees, and they accidentally cut down 5 trees. They crossed the markers we set up and cut down 5 trees on my neighbor's property that were probably worth about $3,000. The neighbor hadn't been here in 25 years to see the 90 acres of trees he owned, but the lawsuit went on for almost a year and a half, and the State Farm Insurance Company paid him $89,000 for his 5 trees, $3,000, because they were afraid to go to court.
Yeah,
and it was one of those, you just go, I feel I need to apologize to all premium payers of State Farm who will end up with that in their premium. But the system is that crazy that something that is that egregious can happen because of the way the legal system is set up.
Yeah, and wasn't intentional. The guys made a mistake. And what are the actual damages? It should be a pretty simple matter to figure this out. That's a simple case, Woody.
Yeah, the thing that was funny is they sued the guy that owned the logging company who didn't cut down the trees. They sued his son who hauled the trees out to the landing ground. They sued me, but the actual brother who cut down the trees wasn't in the lawsuit. Mm-hmm. So the person who ignored the borderline, which was clearly marked, and actually did the damage, never had to be deposed or have any of their time wasted, never had to pay a dime.
Well, there's no question of fact here. In your case that you're giving the example of, because it happened. You admitted it happened. It was done. The evidence was there. So, all right, you go to court, you say, if they insist on a jury trial, we did it. We're sorry. It was an accident. Here's 3 experts on the market value of these stupid trees. But, the whole system, State Farm Farm is happy to pay this out. You have to understand, State Farm's happy to pay it out. They get to raise their rates.
Yeah, they were afraid to go to court with the idea that this guy who hadn't seen this property in 25 years would be able to successfully argue emotional pain and suffering because this property belonged to his father that he bought back in the 1950s. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me.
Oh, yeah.
The statute says he's entitled to $18,000 and not a dime more. You guys are going to pay him $95,000. I almost refused to go along with it because I wanted to see it go to trial and have the opportunity to pound these grifters who were trying. I mean, their first offer is they wanted $370,000 for the 5 trees. It was silly.
Insane. Well, hey, but
we live in an insane world.
Yeah. So the dollar, it's like getting to the end here. I mean, 98 and change is the resistance point. It hasn't been able to break it for months. What's going to be here? And the euro and Brexit and all that, Woody?
Well, I think if you look at the dollar, certainly the intermediate term trend is down. But to me, it looks like a leaf on a windy day falling from the top of the tree. It's having moments where the wind comes and blows it back up a little, but the trend is down. And I think that the dollar at this point is more of evidence of the mental that foreigners have about owning U.S. dollars. I think if you look at the circumstance that exists in the U.S., especially the political circumstance, I can't name a single thing beyond Donald Trump that causes me to be bullish on dollars, and that still is a very long shot. So I think the dollar has a false value here. I think it should be much, much lower. The Greek exit is one of those things. I find it amazing that when the Greek people spoke in a binding way to say no to bailouts, that somehow they ended up with a bailout worse than the one they said no to. I don't think that's going to last. They've just kicked the can down the road. And I think the reason we didn't have a Greek exit and a new drachma, had mostly to do with, the printing ability to get a new currency into circulation. I think you really have to have that ready in a warehouse before you do that, because in a country like Greece, there's a lot of things that can't be done with an electronic transaction. Oh, yeah. But at the end of the day, the Greek exit comedy of errors was just deplorable, as you had American neocons say, well, it's the fault of people who are getting good pensions in Greece. It's not the fault of the 2004 Olympics that was 400% over budget and had all kinds of debt costs that kept rolling over. It's not a result of all these failed infrastructure projects. And it has the same logic to me as if people went into their company tomorrow and the boss had a meeting and brought together, all 100 employees of the company and said, I have bad news for everybody. I have a gambling addiction and I've gambled away $5 million. And all of you are going to have to take a pay cut so that I can make up that money. But I'm not cutting my own pay at all. How does that sound?
Hey, well, but the Greek thing here is irresponsible country that produces nothing, that hasn't produced anything in my lifetime. I've been there. I love Greece. One of the best vacations ever. Been there a few times. Love the place. Love the people. The people are great. But you can't be hooked on entitlements. All right. Whoever is giving them, it doesn't matter. That addiction is gonna end badly for you. It's really that simple. So, you can't blame the Greek people because they have stupid leaders, just like we do, and the whole nature of public pensions is an unsustainable model. Because in the U.S., in order to keep treading water, a public pension fund has got to get an annual return of 7 to 8%. That's what's programmed in all their assumptions. It's been years since most of them have been able to do that. Years and years. Yeah. So it's a bankrupt model that's not sustainable. And that's what Greece has.
There's a part of the problem which has to do with kind of the consent of the governed, is when your government does stupid things that waste billions and trillions of dollars, that's a counterparty risk that blows back on you. And it's not unssimilar to saying somebody who is retired and getting a Social Security check. Look, Bush and Obama have wasted trillions of dollars in spying and resource wars in the Middle East, and you need to have a cut of $100 a month on your check to pay for that mistake, which you didn't support and you didn't want to be a part of, and you opposed. Well, Thomas Jefferson said being forced to contribute to a cause for which it is you find to be important is the definition of tyranny. So I think a lot of these things do have a consent of the governed a problem in them. And in Greece, they're going to have the greatest tax non-compliance problem on earth. And at the end of the day, the part that's really sad about this is there is a model to get out from under these problems. And it's one word: Iceland. Yeah. And if you're not going to take the Iceland playbook, you're just going to have austerity after austerity that will not work, will not create any growth, but it will be the house of pain for everyone who's not a global banker.
Yeah, well, that certainly is part of it, the way we've wasted money. And the whole tax system has basically served to frustrate it. But public pensions, government workers, oxymoron, it's just another welfare program, government employment for many, not all. But whereas in the private sector, you got the Pareto's paradox, where 20% do 80% of the work. And that's definitely true if you've ever worked for any large corporation or dealt with them. I call it in the public sector, you have the I-95 paradox, where 5% of the people do 95% of the work, and the rest of them loaf around drinking coffee, all right? Excepting perhaps the uniformed services, police and fire, who are out there on the streets. But even them, you got brass held up in the station houses often, who haven't taken a walk through their neighborhoods, tremendous bureaucracies, wastefulness beyond all belief.
And it's not unknowing waste, it's knowing waste. And I love to tell this story about, because I live in Northern Virginia. I'm on the West Virginia side of Northern Virginia. Mm-hmm. So I act with a lot of people who work in D.C., who work for the federal government, and contractors for same. And some of the stories that people have told me just make my head spin, like that movie about demonic. One is years ago, off of Craigslist, I bought my wife a new treadmill. and I had to go down to the Leesburg area and pick it up. And I met a young man who worked for a newly formed Homeland Security company that was started by a big campaign contributor who got a contract with the FBI for $77 million to find and hire Islamic translators for the FBI.
Oh, yeah.
And when I asked him how many translators did they hire last year, he said, well, the FBI didn't hire any, but we found 5 for $77 million. And I said to him, I said, well, not for $77 million or $7.7 million or 770,000 or 77,000 or 7,700, but for $770, I can get to Dulles, get on the next plane to Detroit, get off the plane, go to the cab stand, look at all the Iraqi cab drivers, say, take me to Little Baghdad, have a stack of FBI applications. Within an hour, I'll have found 50 people who had a relative raped by one of Saddam Hussein's sons who have a job working for the FBI doing Islamic Farsi translation. And I said, and I could be back that day.
Yeah, of course.
And he looked at me and he said, well, the problem is that process would not create 120 jobs in the political offseason for Republican campaign consultants.
Yeah. Well,
I just looked at him and I thought, gosh, I really want to kill you right now just to save the country some money. And I said, yeah, 120 guys that are probably, looking at porn online half the day. He said, oh, no, it's way more than half.
Well, that's reassuring.
Just said it nonchalantly. And I mean, that is atypical of the kind of company town mentality that goes on in D.C. and Northern Virginia, that all government spending and all waste of other people's money is okay as long as it helps the current community.
Of course, it's all about rentier and basically crony capitalism. We know that. All right. We definitely know it. No question about it. But everybody's in on it. The government employees, the government non-employees, whatever the hell you want to call them, they're all getting a piece of it. They're all getting a piece.
You can't swing a dead cat down here without hitting a contractor who's doing something ridiculous for an amount of money that's obscene. And not a one of them has an ounce of sympathy for the person who can't get their kids a pizza on Friday night because the taxes they're paying that are being squandered.
Of course. I mean, no question about it. It's a conspiracy of dunces, and we are the biggest dunces for putting up with this crap. But that's what we do. We're Americans and proud of it. Anyway, Woody, website again. Tell us where we find your work.
Well, my investment newsletter, that's all woodyknowsmarkets.com. My life's work is to piss on the grave of the Federal Reserve. That website is abolishfiatslavery.com. And I'm on Facebook. I blog and post on Facebook. That is just Woody O'Brien on Facebook. And I am the only Woody O'Brien on Facebook, although there is a Woody O'Brien Irish pub in Saginaw, Michigan that I have to always deny. I have nothing to do with it, don't own it, but I love Irish pubs.
Yeah, well, I love it. And, we met on Facebook. Not that I hang out there, spend much time, but my Facebook group, I've decided to really take an interest in it. FSN Connect. Just look it up on Facebook. If you're a member, great. Post meaningful posts, no spam, or I'm going to delete you, all of you spammers out there. I'm tired of the crap and complaints. And I'm doing my best to post articles and meaningful interviews. This one will go up shortly on our Facebook group. And thank you for joining us today, Woody. It's always fun. It's always interesting. And maybe one day you will actually have a bumper crop of hemp.
That could be. Hey, Kerry, it's always great to be with you. I'm always available to you. Yours is my favorite show that I get to be a guest on.
Well, I'm flattered. And as always, thanks. Just go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com. Check out the site. Sign up for the newsletter, the free webinars. We got 2 of them coming up. One is how to pay off your mortgage in 5 to 7 years. The other one, real estate investing master, who you're not going to believe how simple he makes the process. financialsurvivalnetwork.com. We'll talk to you again soon, Woody. Thanks.
Very good. Bye-bye.
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.